Welcome to another episode of Forgiveness, Faith, and Trust. So the other day, I uploaded a video that said I had to change my perspective. And so in that video, I was talking about how I had to change my perspective on how I saw my childhood, like how I saw my childhood and the things in the different parts in my childhood that ran together and calculated together. And then I was in like a deep fog, like, depression, anger, bitterness, all of that. I was in all of that. And so I had to change my perspective in order to let all of that go. And it took some time. It took a lot of time, actually. It took a lot of time. So I am here to tell you about the second part of that particular story. So up until I was 18 years old, I was told that one particular person was my father, my dad, whatever term you want to use, whatever term should be used. All right. So, when I turned 18, my mom and she was like, you want to take a ride to New Orleans? I was like, sure. It was a Saturday. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's go. Now, up until this point, anywhere we went, I was the driver. Like, I drove everywhere because she did not like to drive. So she said, I'll drive. Bam. First indicator, something ain't quite right. I said, oh, okay. We going to New Orleans and you driving? Something ain't quite right. But I put that in the back of my mind. Said, all right, get dressed, get in the car, let's go. We got dressed, we got in the car. And 5 minutes, I'm going to give it a good 6 or 7 minutes into the drive. She goes, I got something to tell you. Me? I said, what? No, we were going to see Richard, her friend, Richard, in New Orleans. He had just had a major surgery. Matter of fact, he had just had, I think, a quadruple bypass, something like that. It was something major with his heart. He had just had that particular surgery. And she goes, you want to know something funny? Or it was something like that. Well, I got something to tell you. I said, what? Rich and my dad. Just being totally matter of fact, being da-la-dee, la-da-da. And she looks at me. And I knew the answer. She was like, yes. All that, I had to process all of that in a complete hour. I'm 18. Up until this point, I've been told that another individual was my dad. The whole spiel. He's, in my mind, I'm thinking he's a deadbeat dad. He don't want to be bothered with me. Da, 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 da. And at this point, it clicks, and now I understand why when he came to the house and just really didn't want to be bothered, I wasn't his kid. He felt it, he understood it, and he knew it, right? He knew that. So, all these emotions come running back within minutes. And I will never forget, I won't forget the scenery. I won't forget where we were when she said that. Like, we had just gotten on the interstate. by Southern University. We had just gotten on the interstate going towards New Orleans. And we had passed the part where Airline goes underneath the interstate and you're just really getting on 10 towards New Orleans. So from that point until we get to the hospital where he is, I'm having to process this man is my dad. Now, growing up on Saturdays, Sundays, sometimes throughout the week, I would get a telephone call and it would be from these kids, children. Let me speak to my sister. I want to speak to my sister. And I'd be like, my cousin used to stay at my house, stay at the house with me and my grandmother all the time. And so they would call, I want to speak to my sister. Let me speak to my sister. And I was like, well, these are richer kids. I'm just going to talk to them, you know? I'm just going to talk to them because it was my mom's friend's kids. Not realizing all this time, these are my brothers and sisters that I'm literally on the phone with, and I did not know. So, long story short, we get to the hospital. And on the ride there, she says, I had to tell you. And I'm like, so why did you choose to tell me now? Because he had told her that if she did not tell me, before he went into surgery and he did not make it out of the surgery, that she was never to tell. She was never to tell me. And he also told her, if I do make it out of surgery, you will tell her. He made it out of surgery, thank God. And she told me. So we get out of the car. Man, my heart is beating so fast. I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm shy, I'm so many emotions. So many. Just, it was so many. I was anxious. I'm 18. I'm going to meet this person for the first time as knowing him as my dad. I walk in the room and I look in his face and I said, I say, what? Literally, my head is huge, just like his. And I'm like taken aback. I'm in awe. I'm in shock. I'm in a lot. So I sit down across from my brother. He was a junior. And I sit across from him. And it is like I am looking at the male version of myself. Literally. He's sitting across from me and I sit across from him and we literally sitting there. I look at his fingers. I'm like, man, his fingers look just like mine. I look at his ears. Oh, dang. He got the little... Which part? I think it's this one. The elf ear with the little piece missing. Same thing. And I'm in shock. And I'm in awe. And I'm in so many emotions. Just so many emotions. And I'm like, wow. I say very little during the entire time because he's hooked to all of these machines and stuff. He just finished open heart surgery. And I don't remember all of the conversation. I just remember sitting there saying, wow, I look just like them. Like I look just like them. So we finished. We head out of the hospital, get in the car, and on our way home, I'm super quiet. I'm already quiet a lot anyway, but I ain't had nothing to say. Just absolutely nothing. Because I'm still mad. Still bitter. Why would you keep this from me? How can you spring this on me? What is going on? I don't understand. Da, 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 da. And for the longest, from 18 from that day, and it was many years, many years went by, I held on to that. I held on to the grudge of her not telling me. I held on to, I just held on to so much. I missed out on a lot because I held on to that. The unforgiveness. You got to forgive people and you got to move on. I held on to a lot. Well, I'm telling you this to say, change your perspective on how you grew up, because you don't know the information you don't know. And when you get that information, close the gap on changing your perspective. Close the gap on forgiveness. Close the gap on having faith and trust in people. Just close the gap. Get there quicker. Because if you can get there quicker, if you could get through the hurt, the emotions of it, and get to the healing of it, you can go on to form bonds. You can go on to form relationship with people. I did not. I didn't. I was angry and I was mad. I had so many questions like, what? Why you didn't fight for me? Yeah, you knew I was your daughter. Why you didn't fight for me? Right? But he did. He did. He did. When I was little, my sisters and brothers used to call and say, can I speak to my sister? They knew. I didn't know. I didn't know. I held on to a lot of bitterness and anger. I'll never forget. My twins are 16 now. My dad, my two brothers, and my sister at the time came to my grandmother's house. The boys were, I think, they were babies. They were babies. They were small. And by babies, they 5, 6 weeks, a month or 2 or 3 months. They were small. They were babies. And I will never forget them coming into the house. And just the camaraderie they had, the relationship they had, the bond that the four of them had. I sat in my grandmother's living room and I was like, wow, I missed out. Wow. I felt like I was robbed. I felt like I was on the outside looking in. Things that I needed. Like I needed that relationship with a father. That's another video. I made some crazy decisions when it came to men because I feel like I didn't have that relationship. Another thing, got to be accountable for the decisions that you make. And change your perspective. I had to change my perspective fully, real, all the way around, because I had to go back and say, hey, your childhood wasn't that bad. It wasn't. You will feel your home was filled with a lot of love, lots of love. May not have been from the people you thought you should have had it from, but you had it. Your mother and your grandmother surrounded you with love. They did. So I give you those stories to say, go back and change your perspective. Forgive people when you need to forgive people. Forgive them. It took me a while to forgive. It took a while for me to have faith in that situation. It took me a long time to trust people. And I missed out. Like, I missed out. I literally missed out. Because the day before, may have been 2 weeks, my dad, 2 weeks before he passed away, he sent me a letter in the mail. And it was just a written note, just explaining and apologizing and explaining, right? And so after that, I said, I'm going to go see him. I want to see him. Not less than a week later, my brother calls me on the phone. I'm driving down Airline Highway He goes, Kim, I found Dad. There goes that theme again. I thought I had more time. Thought I had more time, and I didn't. So, change your perspective. Because God knows you. He knows what's ahead of you before you even get here. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Right now I have hope. Hope that I can close the gap on changing my perspective. I have hope that I could close the gap on forgiving people. I have hope that I can close the gap on trusting people. And this is the hope, that I have faith in God and faith in that particular scripture, because he has plans for me, plans to prosper. Like he knows you before you even get here. Like he knows you before you get here. God knows you before you even get here. And how do I know that? I have a human experience that says I know about that. My little cousin, who I deem as a sister, looked at my mother one day and she said, "I saw you when I was in heaven. And I told God I wanted to come down and be with you. I wanted to be your child." She was a little girl then. She was 8 or 9, 7, 8, somewhere around there. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. My grandmother and my mother raised her. Oh, I have so many stories that I could tell, that God knows you before you even land here on earth. Like he knows you. He knows the plans for you. He knows where you're going and what you're going to be doing. He knew me before I came with my mom. He knew the situations that I would go through. He knew that. He knew I would come here, right here today, and have this conversation with you. To be able to tell you, hey, get it together. Close the gap. Change your perspective. That's it.